Every AI tool has one similar problem. Either it writes in the exact tone you asked for, but invents stats that don't exist anywhere in your document, or it sticks to your sources perfectly, but dumps everything into one giant wall of text you have to reformat from scratch. I ran into this exact wall a few weeks ago, and I fixed it by wiring two free Google tools together, NotebookLM and Gemini Gems. So in this video, I'm going to show you the 3 systems I built with this setup, and by the end you'll have a custom AI assistant that knows your documents, follows your exact rules, and produces output you can actually use without rewriting it. A gem is a custom version of Gemini with permanent instructions. You give it a persona, a task, constraints, and an output format, and it remembers all of that across every conversation you have with it. To create one, I'll head over to Gemini and click on Gems in the left sidebar. When I land on this page, I can already see some pre-made gems that Google has created, and these show up based on what you typically chat about in Gemini and which ones are popular right now. But I want to build my own, so I'll go to the My Gems section and press New Gem. This opens a setup page with 3 main fields: name, description, and instructions. The name is for your own reference. The description helps you remember what the gem does at a glance, and the instructions field is where the actual behavior gets defined. Below those fields, there's a default tool dropdown that lets me assign a specific tool to the gem, like create images, deep research, create video, or create music. I'll leave it on no default tool for now so the gem has full flexibility. And below that, there's a knowledge section where I can upload files directly into the gem for reference. Now, the framework that makes gem instructions actually work is something I call PACT, and it stands for Persona, Assignment, Context, and Template. Let me show you what this looks like. I'll create a gem called Email Drafter and walk through each part. For persona, I'll write, "You are a direct professional business communicator who values brevity." That tells the gem exactly who it's acting as. For assignment, I'll write, "Draft client emails based on the situation I describe." That's the specific output I want every time I use this gem. For context, I'll write, "Keep every email under 150 words, never use filler phrases, always end with one clear next step, and match a tone that is friendly but not casual." These are the guardrails that keep the output consistent. And for template, I'll write, "Subject line, greeting, body and 2 short paragraphs max, closing with the next step clearly stated." That locks in the structure so every email comes out formatted the same way. I'll save it and open a chat with the gem. I'll type "draft a follow-up email to a client who hasn't responded to my proposal in 5 days. And the gem immediately gives me an email in the exact tone and structure I described. Short and direct, with a clear next step at the end. If I ask it to write 10 more follow-ups over the next month, every single one will follow those same rules without me restating them. Now, the reason this matters is that a regular Gemini chat starts losing your earlier instructions once the conversation gets long enough. The further you go, the more it drifts from what you originally told it to do. A gem doesn't have that problem. Your instructions are locked in permanently. So whether it's your first conversation or your 50th, the behavior stays the same. But even with a gem, there's still a gap. Gems follow instructions well, but when it comes to referencing documents accurately, especially dense ones with specific numbers or policies, they tend to drift. They'll paraphrase loosely or fill in gaps with information that sounds right but isn't actually in the source. NotebookLM doesn't do that. It's built specifically to ground every response in the documents you upload, so the answer always traces back to an actual source. That's why the combination works. NotebookLM handles the knowledge and keeps it accurate. The gem handles the behavior and keeps it consistent. You can share a gem with your team too. So once you build something that works well, anyone on your team can use the exact same setup without configuring anything themselves. That turns a personal tool into a team-wide system. And the first system I built with this setup is the one that saved me the most time. And by the way, I put together a free blueprint pack with every gem instruction and NotebookLM prompt from this video ready to paste, plus 6 bonus gem templates. You can grab it in the description below. I used to treat research and writing as 2 completely separate workflows. I'd spend an hour reading through articles, pulling out the useful stats, organizing everything into notes, and then open a blank document and start writing from scratch. The research never fed into the writing cleanly. I always had to reread my own notes, figure out which stats came from where, and manually stitch it all together. This system removes that gap entirely. I'll start in NotebookLM and create a new notebook. I'm going to upload a couple of sources, a competitor blog on AI workflows, and an AI productivity tools report from 2026. Then I'll switch the prompt box to deep research using the drop-down on the left side, and type something like, "Find additional sources on AI productivity tools and how businesses are adopting them in 2026. Deep research goes out and digs through dozens of sources across the web. When it finishes, I press import to pull everything into the notebook. If any sources fail to load, I just right-click and delete them to keep things clean. Now I have a full research base sitting inside NotebookLM. I'll go to the Studio panel on the right, click on Reports, select Create My Own, and describe what I need. NotebookLM generates a structured research brief grounded in the actual sources I uploaded. Every claim traces back to a specific document, so I can verify anything I want before it goes into the final piece. Now here's where the approach gets interesting. With most tools, you'd have no idea which stat came from which source, and findings can get paraphrased so loosely that the original meaning drifts. NotebookLM avoids that entirely. It reads every document carefully, organizes the findings, and tags each insight to the source it came from. So now I have a clean, verified research brief. I'll export to Docs, which automatically saves it to my Google Drive so it's accessible from anywhere in Google's ecosystem. Next, I'll create a gem in Gemini called Content Writer. In the instructions, I'll write the full packed formula for how I want my content written. And this is the part that makes this gem reusable for everything. I'm not uploading any specific research into the knowledge section. The gem only holds my writing style, my tone, my format rules, and my content structure. That means I can feed it any topic, any research, and it will always write in my voice. I'll save the gem. Now I open Google Docs and click the Gemini icon in the top right corner. The sidebar opens up on the right side. In the prompt box at the bottom, there's a plus icon. I'll click that and it shows 4 checkboxes: Drive Search, Gmail Search, Chat Search, and Web Search. I'll check all of them so the gem can access everything in my Google ecosystem. Then I'll click the 3 bars at the top and select the Content Writer gem. Now I'll type something like, there's a research brief in my drive called AI Productivity Trends 2026. Read that and write a 1,200 word blog post based on the findings. Follow the structure and tone from your instructions. And the gem pulls the report directly from my drive, reads the verified research, and writes a full blog post in my exact voice, structure, and formatting rules. Now I can just copy this entire thing and have it saved in my Google Docs. The whole process from uploading sources to a finished draft takes about 15 minutes. Now this handles content, but the gem's ability to pull from Drive opens up another use case that saves even more time, especially if you run a service-based business and find yourself rewriting the same proposal structure every time a new client reaches out. I tracked how long I was spending on proposals last month, and it averaged out to about 50 minutes per lead. Not because the proposals were difficult, but because every time I'd go dig through old projects, copy the sections that worked, adjust the scope to fit the new client, rewrite the pricing, and by the time I was done, I'd produced something that was 80% recycled from the last one anyway. This system cuts that down to about 15 minutes. I'll start in NotebookLM and create a notebook called Business Knowledge Base. Into this, I upload everything that defines how my business operates. Case studies with actual results, service descriptions, and even pricing sheets. Now I'll go to the Studio panel and generate a report. I'll select Create My Own and describe what I need. NotebookLM compiles everything into one structured reference doc. My pricing is organized, my case studies are summarized with the client type, scope, and results, and my service descriptions are pulled together in one place. I'll save this reference doc to my Google Drive. Now I'll create a gem in Gemini called Proposal Writer and write the instructions. Now when a new lead comes in, I open Google Docs, click the Gemini icon, make sure Drive Search is turned on, and select the Proposal Writer gem. I'll describe the project in a few sentences, something like, there's a master reference doc in my drive called Business Knowledge Base. Use it to write a proposal for a web redesign for a mid-size e-commerce brand. Budget around $15,000, timeline 8 weeks. They care about conversion rate and mobile experience. The gem pulls the reference doc from Drive, reads through my pricing, finds 2 relevant case studies, and drafts a full proposal with a project scope, timeline, pricing breakdown, and case study references. Without the NotebookLM step, the gem would guess at pricing and invent case study details. With the pre-organized reference in Drive, it pulls actual numbers from my pricing sheet and references real projects I've completed. And because I can share this gem with my team using the Share button on the Gems panel, anyone at my company can generate proposals using the same reference doc and the same rules, without me being involved at all. Proposals handle new business coming in, but there's something that takes up even more time on a daily basis, and that's the same customer messages landing in your inbox over and over, where every response has to be accurate, on brand, and consistent regardless of who on your team is sending it. If you run an e-commerce store or any subscription-based product, you already know that the same handful of messages show up in your inbox every single day, and every response needs to match your policies exactly while sounding like your brand. If one team member tells a customer they can return within 30 days and another one says 14 days because they remembered wrong, that's a real problem. This system makes sure every response is grounded in your actual policies and written in your actual tone, no matter who on the team is sending it. I'll start in NotebookLM and create a notebook called Support Knowledge Base. I'll upload the raw core documents, my FAQ page, return and refund policy, shipping policy, subscription terms, and a brand voice guide that describes how I communicate with customers. For this demo, I'm using 5 documents, but you could upload dozens. The system scales with however much documentation you have. Now I'll go to the Studio panel and generate a briefing doc from reports. This takes all 5 documents and compresses them into one structured reference that covers the main policies, the edge cases, and the brand voice rules. I'll also generate a custom report that says, compile a response guide organized by question category with the correct policy answer and the source document for each one. Now I have two clean structured files, a policy briefing and a response guide, both verified against my actual documents by NotebookLM. I'll save both to my Google Drive. I'll create a gem called Support Assistant and write the instructions. I'll save it. Now to use it, I open Google Docs, click the Gemini icon, turn on Drive Search, and select the Support Assistant gem. I'll paste a custom message into the prompt, something like, I ordered a jacket 3 weeks ago and it doesn't fit. I already removed the tags. Can I still return it or exchange it for a different size? The gem pulls the policy docs from Drive, finds the correct return policy for items with tags removed, checks if the 3-week window falls within the return period, matches my brand voice, and drafts 2 response versions, a full email and a short chat reply. Now let's try a more difficult one just to see if it's referencing the docs accurately. A customer writes, I've been charged twice for my subscription this month. I want a refund for the duplicate charge, and I also want to cancel going forward. The gem checks the subscription billing terms from Drive, identifies the duplicate charge as a billing error, drafts a response that acknowledges the issue, confirms the refund process from the policy doc, and handles the cancellation request according to the subscription terms. That kind of structured response runs the same way every single time, regardless of who on your team is handling the message. And the applications go beyond just answering questions. You can use the same system to draft promotional emails that match your brand tone, standardize how your team responds across email, chat, and social media, or onboard a new support person in a day instead of weeks because the system already knows every policy. Once I share this gem with my team, every support rep has access to the same knowledge base and the same response rules. That turns one well-built gem into a company-wide support system. And one of the biggest reasons that Support Assistant gem works as well as it does is because NotebookLM compressed 5 separate policy documents into 2 clean files that the gem can actually reference accurately. If you want to go deeper on NotebookLM and learn the settings and workflows that make those reports even better, I made a full video on that which you can watch right here. And the blueprint pack with every gem instruction and NotebookLM prompt from this video is in the description below, so grab that and you can have all of this set up in about 20 minutes. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.